Victoria Harris! Victoria Harris, stop trying to outrun your destiny. The power is too great, the path too strong. You must take up the quest. Don't you know the great adventures that await you? Don't you feel the excitement and the passion? I am not asking you to renounce the great evil and war, but it is time.
Hey Crusaders! Today I will be talking about my journey into fantasy and setting myself some fantasy goals. I am so excited for this journey and to begin this, and I am really happy and really badly want to document my change. So this is the beginning, and you've always got to start somewhere. So this is the first video tracking my flight dive, just kind of sauntering into fantasy. This all started because someone booked me to read a Game of Thrones. It was his favourite book and he wouldn't stop going on about it just all the time. Have you read a Game of Thrones yet? Why haven't you read a Game of Thrones? I've read them all 6 times. And I was like, fine, I'll ask for it for my birthday. So I asked for it for my birthday and it sort of changed everything. I never even realised how much fun it was to dive into a completely different world and just be completely immersed, and it's much better than the movies and TV because it's a book and that's what happens in books, you get immersed in a different world. I knew after that I was hooked and I needed so much more. I hadn't even read a YA fantasy, not including Harry Potter and His Dark Materials of course, because they don't count, I read them when I was a child. I just never considered the fact that I might like fantasy books as a genre, which is stupid really, because I adored fantasy TV shows. Merlin is my favourite TV show of all time. I love the magic, I love the Arthurian legend, I can't get enough of that programme. All 5 series are absolutely amazing by the way, and they get darker and darker as they go along. You should watch them now if you haven't watched them. And I am such a fool for not thinking to pick up any Arthurian legend books. And there are quite a few of them. Apart from the original legends, I have read those. I've only scratched the surface so far and read a few different ones, but I am so ready to read more and make 2015 a fantasy year. I also want to point out that booktubesff is a thing, and it's a fantastic thing, and many of the books that I have to talk about today are because of those amazing booktubers. So without further ado, here are some fantasy goals I'm setting myself for the next year. The first goal is a really simple one, and it is to read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is an absolute booktube legend, and of course I have to read something by him. I know to read Warbreaker first because I watched Lindsay Ray's Brandon Sanderson author exploration video, and this is the one that really grabs my fancy. The second goal is to read The Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit is an absolutely fantastic book and Tolkien is the farmer, and it would be silly not to read The Lord of the Rings as soon as possible. My third goal is to finish the Night Runner series. I'm really hoping to get to book 4 before the month is out. It's a fantastic fantasy series with magic and lots of fun and low commitment, and it was a great place for me to start and introduce me, and the Night Runners will forever be in my heart. However many fantasy books come along, the Night Runners will always be there. The next goal I have is a little bit different because it's just a kind of a side goal, which is to read a science fiction book, because I'm not sure if I've ever read a science fiction book. If I have done, then I can't remember it, or I didn't know at the time that it was really in a genre because I didn't used to even think of books in terms of genres. So that is a goal which I want to accomplish. Which kind of brings me on to my next point. My next point is that the first video I put up, I was talking about the Night Runner series for the first time and how it was one of the first fantasy series I've read. Actually no, it was the first fantasy series I've read, apart from Harry Potter. And Michael from Bitten by a Radioactive Book commented and gave me some recommendations of places to start with fantasy, and I think that that was absolutely brilliant, and I just want to include these in here. Michael, hello, you know, yes, thank you for letting me. And okay, so we have Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Pretty standard. Robin Hobb, another big name that needs to be read. We have The Curse of Shalion by Lois McMaster Bujold. I don't know what this one is about, and I hope I pronounced that name right. We have Tigana, or is it Tigana, by Guy Gabriel Kay. Why do these people have such confusing titles and names? Again, I don't really know what it's about, but it's supposed to be fantastic, I think. Anyway, sounds like I trust Michael's opinion. It's a good place to start. And of course, what I'm saying is that he also recommended a couple of science fiction books, and these are pretty well-known science fiction books, and these would be the kind of places I was thinking to start anyway, so that makes me happy. And they are Old Man's War by John Scalzi. John Scalzi is another big name in science fiction. That is surely a good place to start. I've heard about this one quite a lot. And Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, which I've also heard a lot of, so maybe that'll be where I start with science fiction. So my last few goals talk more in terms of numbers than books, and that would be to read at least 2 fantasy books a month. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's bearing in mind the fact that I love to read classics, literary fiction and historical fiction, and I'm not giving up on any of them anytime soon, so I think 2 a month is fair. And also to read at least 30 months read 30 months in a year, and to read at least 30 fantasy books in 2015. Now this works out as a little more than 2 books a month, 2.5 books a month. That sounds good. Pretty sure the amount of books that I'm going to read in 2014 is 60, so if that's the case, then that would be half of my reading would be fantasy. Last goal is to be able to confidently say this time next year that I am a fantasy reader. Are you a fantasy reader? Well, yes. Look at all these series that I have read or started or not to complete. I'll probably have a lot of series I need to complete come this time next year. That's probably what this next video is going to be talking about. It's not going to be my fantasy goals, it's going to be my fantasy series that I need to finish. Thank you for watching. I know this video wasn't particularly informative about any fantasy book, but that wasn't the point, was it? These are my goals. I'm setting down my goals. I'm telling myself, you'll read fantasy. And I'm so excited. This is only the start of my adventure. Things can only go up from here. I'd love to talk about fantasy in the comments if you have anything to say, and any recommendations to give me will be much appreciated. Oh my gosh, they'll be the most appreciated thing ever. Get me excited, give me recommendations, make this year absolutely fantastic. You BookTubesff people are fabulous. Okay, that is me done, I believe, yes.